John McCalmont here, another Bass Champs Doc Talk. I'm joined with Jeff Welch, of course, and I've got somebody up here in the corner. You probably already know who it is, but I've got to say a couple of things about this guy. I had the privilege of fishing against him in many, many, many tournaments. I went back and I looked at the stats, and I actually beat him like one or two. He kind of got me in the rest of them. And of course, when they say you can't beat him anymore, because I know I can't beat this guy anymore because he's doing so well on the professional trail, you learn from them. So I've got AJ Alton Jones Jr. here. He's going to talk all things Garmin. And I know, Jeff, you're excited about that because you and we probably talk Garmin every single time we got on the phone. We talk something about it, don't we?
Absolutely. I've got lots of questions. I hope we have enough time.
I've got lots of questions. And first, AJ, I got to tell you, man, I love your YouTube channel. I've learned so much from that. But more importantly, it's a lot of fun to watch you. You know, I think when we were talking on the phone the other day, I had so much fun watching you fish with your dad in a
Mhm.
team event.
Yeah.
That was just, I found that so special.
Yeah, man. We've had a ton of fun producing the content, but that team event that we got to fish with each other was super special. Growing up, we fished a lot together. I mean, 1,000 days, if not more, taught me a lot. But we never really got to fish tournaments together because, with his pro status and how busy he is, he couldn't fish a lot of amateur events. And so, outside of, a Skeeter owners tournament back in the day and maybe a few Wednesday night jackpotters, we never got that tournament feel together. So when it came out that there was going to be a team event and a draft, there was no doubt in who I was going to pick as my partner for that first event. And it was so much fun. Like it was just, we fish all the time against each other now, but people will be really surprised. We maybe spend 1, 2 days a year on the water together
Wow.
because our schedules are so demanding. So to get to spend 3 consecutive days on the water with my dad competing, it was just like childhood reincarnated, and it was so much fun.
Well, before we jump into all of the Garmin stuff that we're wanting to learn about, now, are you still living in the Waco area?
Yeah, yeah, we're living in Waco, born and raised. Have no plans on leaving. I've got my family here, my wife's family's here, and so we're building a little family of our own, and love it here.
Yeah, because I've known your dad forever because I spent all my summers in Waco. My grandfather was the manager of the airport, the Air Force airport out there, James Connolly Airport. So I mean, I cut my teeth on Lake Waco, Trading House, those lakes,
Yeah.
and then of course, you and I did actually fish together on the Bass Champs Tournament Trail down in the South, especially.
Mhm.
Tell us about your experience cutting your teeth fishing Bass Champs when you were in your younger years.
Yeah. So, when I turned 16, had access to a boat, but I was only 16 and wanted to go fish, Rayburn and Toledo and Falcon and Amistad and all these. But obviously my age and just traveling all across the state, staying in, who knows what hotels was not something on my parents like high on their list. But I had a good friend. He was in his 30s at the time, great dude named David Ridley. And we fished together, and he was like that guy that he could kind of babysit me on the road. My parents felt very comfortable and allowed, turned me loose to travel around and fish, and as long as I was getting my schoolwork done, and Bass Champs at that time was and still is the top level of team trails, in the whole country. So the best way to learn is to go get your teeth cracked by, the Dickie Newberries and the Terry Oldhams and just all these guys on their local lakes, some of the best competition you could find. And that's the fastest way to learn is to go get your brains beat in. And so I jumped into those and took my licks and was fortunate to give a few and just got to learn a lot of really cool bodies of water, fishing all across the state. There's so many different bodies of water, whether it's a highland reservoir like Lake Belton or, some of those swampy East Texas lakes or even, down in the Rio Grande, which are just animals of their own from crystal clear to chocolate milk mud. Um, got to learn a lot and really get my feet wet in that tournament scene. And people ask like, when did you know you wanted to be a pro? And I always loved to fish and um, was good at it because I had a great teacher. But when I got that taste of like the competition, I'm an incredibly competitive person, just like my dad. When the love for fishing and the competition mixed, it was like drop all other sports, forget school, which I don't know if my parents would like me to say that, but I was like, I want to bass fish the rest of my life, and was very fortunate. You know, the Lord blessed me and allowed me to do that and pursue that dream, and it's kind of been history ever since. I've got a bunch of Bass Champs trophies and old pictures up in here, and still things that I cherish. Some really good sticks in those events, and you know, those trophies are not easy to win. So.
No, I remember interviewing you on the Bass Champs television show back then on some of the wins you had, and of course, we were all fortunate to be able to fish lakes like Amstead and Falcon in their heyday. But man, can
Mhm.
you imagine having the Garmin technology on your boat that you have now back when those lakes were in their heyday?
I really can't. You know, we talk about this all the time. Like, man, you know, we had a magic tree where you could pull up and catch 50 fish off of it, and their best five would weigh 45 pounds. You catch them every cast, and I'm like, what would that have looked like on live scope? You know, or on Amistad, we used to fish these drains and throw swim baits over trees that you can't see. You're just kind of fan casting, hoping you come across a tree with a big one. And I'm like, man, imagine what we could have caught if we could have cut out all that dead water that we would blindly fish and go hit the good trees. You know, just so many wasted casts. Like, what did those trees look like? Was there one 8 pounder in it? Was there 28 pounders in it? We just didn't know. But it was there was definitely a lot of mystery of what it could have been like in those heydays had we had the technology we have now.
Well, give us a quick rundown. Jeff and I both have a list of questions for you, but before
Mm,
we get into those questions, give us a rundown on what Garmin's you're running on your boat and why. And why don't you
hmm
just start at the console? I know you've got two at the console. Tell us about
Yep.
those.
So at the console, I've got two. These are 126 SVs, EchoMap Ultra 2s. Um, and you know, these are just strictly, I use this one for strictly mapping here. And then this one is my side view, down view, and traditional sonar. So I've got these run to a GT8 through hole transducer for my 2D, and then a GT36 Ultra HD for my sonar or for my side view. And you know, these screens basically never change. Now I'll change some settings and things on this. You know, how far I'm looking on my side scan, what frequency I'm using depending on the bottom contour. If I'm trying to look super, here, a little tip: if you're looking close, you're trying to see individual fish, you want to run on that 1070 chirp, the really high frequency to give you that crisp image. But if you're looking for major structure, brush piles, boulders, and want to look out really far, you know, over 100 feet, you can go down to 800 or even 455 hertz, which are going to give you a much wider range, great for seeing that bigger structure. And then to spend a lot of time idling there with those. And then up at the front, you know, this is kind of the stuff everybody wants to see. I've got two Echo Map Ultras. These are 126, these are 12 inches as well. This one is mapping in 2D. And then this one right here, I've got perspective mode. Um, you know, really kind of like this right here, perspective mode is kind of the new frontier. I know it's been out for a few years, but uh, guys are really just starting to unlock like the potential of perspective mode, and how it lets you learn. And then on the front here, I've got the 8616 for forward. So this unit is not networked with my other units just because it is a saltwater unit. The reason I run this unit, one, it's a bigger screen, bigger picture. I know we all like seeing those blobs be bigger. And then two, it's a higher resolution screen. So you're getting a faster refresh rate. You're getting just a little cleaner, crisper picture. Better in, you know, intense sun when the screens are hard to see. So bigger is always better. I'm just waiting for the guy that goes ahead and puts one of those giant cruise ship units up on the front up here.
So now on the 8616 that you're running at the front there, you said that's
Mhm.
the saltwater version. Are you also using the saltwater transducer in conjunction with that?
No, I've just got two LVS 34s here. So this is Live Scope Plus. You'll see I've got the one in perspective and then the one in forward. I have used the saltwater transducer before. And while it's great, kind of like what I talked about with the with those lower frequency settings on the side scan, it's great for looking super far. and it's mostly used in perspective mode. So for those guys that are interested in dabbling in that, it's great for looking. I mean, you're looking a football field in each direction with that thing, in 180 degrees. So you can cover a lot of water, but you're not looking for individual fish. You're looking for major pieces of structure, or where it's most used is looking for giant balls of bait. Like if you want to pull into a drain on Sam Rayburn or Toledo Bend and figure out where the bait is, you can cover a lot of water fast, just to help you be more efficient. But as far as seeing your bait and seeing a fish, you're still going to want that LVS 34.
Interesting. That's good information to have.
hmm
And
hmm
the higher resolution, you really gain an advantage with that. You feel when you're watching that.
Yeah, you can do everything I do on this 16 on a 9-inch Echo map. Um, but it's an incremental advantage, just like adding another transducer to your unit. The first one's going to be the most valuable. The second one's going to, it's not like doubling down. It's an incremental advantage. Um, but if this thing right here helps me put 2 extra keepers in the boat every day, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
So, it allows me to see a few little nuances. If that bigger screen helps me see a fish that's tight to the bottom that I might not have noticed on a smaller screen, you could still see it. But, when it's smaller, it's more easily looked over. So, that's really, it's those extra bites. A lot of times the difference between having a great tournament and just missing a check is that one big bite, and if it can help me get that one big bite, it pays for itself. And so that's how I see it. It is a business investment, and these things are tools that help me put food on the family, or food on the table for my family.
Now, one thing that's talked about before we get into the details of how you're setting those up.
hmm
How are you powering though? What kind of power are you sending to all of
Yeah,
those
so
units?
power is a big question when it comes to live scope. You'll see I've got 13.1 volts here, 13.2 to these units. I run lithium to my all my units. So I've got Pro Guide lithiums. They're 12-volt batteries, but at a full charge, you're kicking out like 13.4. When they're near dead, you're like 12.9. And having that voltage in the high 12s or above is really key in getting that crisp picture. If you're running AGMs, while they can work, AGMs don't have a flat curve. Like as a lithium goes dead, it does this and then it dies. An AGM is going to slowly do that throughout the day. So if you start dropping into those 11s, the power to the black box that runs your live scope is incredibly important, just because it's working really really hard, and so it gives you a crisper picture having higher volts. Some guys play around with even higher voltage. This unit right here can actually receive, I think, 24 volts. Haven't dabbled in that yet, but having voltage above 12 is incredibly important. So if you're not happy with your live scope picture and you're seeing 11.9 volts right there in that top corner, um, it's probably time to either one, look at upgrading batteries to lithiums, or checking what your wiring's like in between the battery and the unit.
Jeffrey, I know you're sitting there ready to ask some questions. I'm sitting here dominating the conversation. Go
No,
ahead,
no,
brother.
we're good. Before we get on to my next set, let's wrap up power here. AJ,
Mhm.
dedicated battery to your electronics?
I don't have a dedicated battery, but I do have two lithium cranking batteries. So I've got 200 amp hours back there, which is massively overkill. Um, I think it is a good thing to have a dedicated battery depending on what kind of power system you're running. But the way I've got mine set up with the 200 amp hours of lithiums back there, it's more than enough. But if you wanted to play around in that 16-volt range, I mean, Pro Guide's making one now. It's a 16 volt. You would want that to be dedicated, because you wouldn't want to crank your motor with a 16
Right,
volt
right,
battery.
right.
You would cause a lot more problems.
You smoke
So
coming out of the cowling.
right, right.
And you find that those two batteries, you're pulling a full 8-10 hour tournament day with those with no problem.
Oh, I mean, practice days. When we go up north, practice days we're going to Saginaw Bay this year in the end of the summer. Our practice days are going to be 15 plus hours long. And we run our equipment harder in practice than we do in the tournament because that's search time. That's when I'm got the trolling motor on high. I'm running and gunning, doing all kinds of stuff, and these things kill it. So they do great.
So you talked about the settings when you're searching from the console. You talked about switching settings, for your side
Hmm.
scan for finding fish versus going further out, finding boulders, rocks,
Hmm.
ledges, whatever.
Hmm.
Are you switching through those settings throughout the day, or are you and really scoping in and dialing on an area? So, and I'm just going to give you a little scenario. So you're driving down with your side scan, and you find some boulders off to the side. Are you getting
Hmm.
closer to those boulders, resetting your settings to see if you can find fish inside of those?
A lot of times, when I see something, on side scan, say it's way out, I'll take a waypoint on it on my units on the back there, which are all networked to my mapping up here, and that's when I'll turn the motor off, I'll drop the trolling motor, and I'll actually use live scope to um, look at the boulder because I can get a lot more info and clearer picture. Um, I can kind of do around the boulder a lot easier and faster than I could with side view. And so I use live scope to really pinpoint whether or not there are fish there because you can just see so much so tied to those rocks. Kind of see if they're hiding on the backside of them, things like that.
All right, should we dive right in, Jeff,
Yeah,
to
yeah, man.
the
I'm
live scope
freaking.
settings?
I
You got
can't
your
wait.
pin ready?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I've got mine
absolutely.
ready.
The good news is this is recorded, so I can watch it again. All right. So for myself, all of our lots of anglers I talk to, I'm
Mhm.
sure you're approached with this, but man, I want to hear it straight from you. I I take my bass boat to my dealer. I
Mhm.
have them put on a Garmin display. I've got a black
Mhm.
box. I've got a LV34. I do a little research. I go to your YouTube channel or wherever. I
Mhm.
just start like we have all this at our stuff that you didn't have 20 years ago.
Mhm.
But I go to the lake and immediately my screen looks nothing like what I just watched on one of your videos. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a common question. I mean, and
Mhm.
really what I'd like you to do, and this is going to help me, it's going to help John, it's going to
Mhm.
help anglers. I want to, from starting from, you picked up a brand new boat, your
Yep.
electronics, whether you rigged it or had someone else rig it, but you're going to the lake. And I know you go to the
Mhm.
lake before you show up to your first event. It's how you make a living. You can't count on
Mhm.
anything till you go mess with it. But
Yep.
man, let's talk color palette settings, adjustments
Yep.
through the day. I've got tons of questions, but let's get a baseline because that's a common deal I hear at these
Yeah.
meetings is, man, my stuff doesn't look like AJ Jr. I mean, what's he must get a special transducer, and I hear this. He gets
No.
he gets a
He gets a
prototype
special
tank.
unit.
Hey,
He's
I
Yeah,
got
wish.
units
Hey,
that
I
nobody else
wish.
can get.
I
and
wish.
here's the
I
deal.
wish.
I sometimes I know better, but I feel that way because I'm like,
Hmm.
man, I mean, he's out there chasing one at 82 feet that's floating 10 feet down, and he's throwing a
Hmm.
little minnow, and I man, I got an A rig and I can't even see it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's get in the ballpark and then get a little more specific. I've got another set of questions, but day
Hmm.
one, you back your boat off the trailer, and you dump your trolling motor in. What are we going to do?
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through my settings here. I'll say this: my settings, I play with them a decent amount. Fishing all across the country, you deal with a lot of different things: watercolor, debris, pollen. Um, the clearer the water, the crisper your live scope's going to read. The less sediment that's in that water, there's less for that transducer to look through. So keep all that in mind when you're looking at a video of me fishing on St. Clair. It's going to look a little bit different than fishing on Lake Livingston,
Okay.
So, but a few things that I do here that I think help give me a much better picture. One, I always keep my range on 100 feet. Every once in a while, when I'm really looking for bait chasers that are really sporadic, I'll go out to 120. But I think keeping your range at whatever's comfortable for you, 100 feet, 80 feet, you figure out that range that you like and then keep it there because what you'll have to do, you've got your bars here 20, 30, 40, 50, 50, and on. Um, I don't ever look at the screen, then look at that, then look back at the fish to say, oh, he's 70 feet. I just know when he's right here on my screen, he's 70 feet, and I know exactly where to make that cast. Making efficient casts is really big. Now we'll get into the settings. You'll see here, I run my gain a little bit higher than most. You'll see a lot of guys running theirs in the 60s. And as you turn it up, I'll run mine as high as like 82. And if you don't have your settings right, it'll kind of blow out the screen with interference. So what I do here is I go into options. Can y'all see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Sonar setup. We're going to go to appearance. And color gain and color limit are two really, really important settings. You'll see as I drop this color gain down, I'm going to get a little bit different picture, and you'll see it get way more. See it almost change color there.
Yeah.
It kind of goes from an orange to a yellow. So this is really what I turn up to give me that pop of my bait. But one thing this is doing is it's emphasizing every little particle in the water. So if you just turn that up and don't mess with your color limit, the screen will look blown out. So I go to my color limit. I can turn that up. See how it cleans the screen up right there? All of a sudden, you're
Yeah.
getting no interference. Now, you're battling two things here. As you clean it up, you're seeing less of the little particles in the water, but you kind of find that happy medium where you're not getting a ton of interference, and you can turn that. I like to run it, somewhere between 60 and 80%. Um, and then I'll mess with my color gain and do the same. I'll run it anywhere from 60 to 90%. And that color gain is what's really going to make your bait pop. Okay. Um, it's going to turn everything really bright, make them really like twinkly starry. Um, when you're looking for fish that are nomadic, chasing bait, floating up, I'll crank this really high. When I'm looking for shallow fish, um, that are, a round structure tight to the bottom, I'll turn this down, then turn my color limit down. And then with that, I'll also have to bring my gain down. So you have three things that you're playing with here, to kind of find that happy medium for you that day. Two things, you always want TVG off. Okay. You want ghost reject low or off, and you want noise reject low or off, depending on the day. Those are two things that'll just clean up clutter on your screen. TVG actually is more for fishing really, really deep. It actually takes the top of your water column out. So if you're looking to see that splash of your bait and you have TVG on and you're wondering why you can't see the splash of your bait, that's why. Um,
That would
and
explain mine.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah, make sure that TVG's off. I don't know a pro on any tour that scopes that runs TVG on in just about any situation. So that's a big one. And as far as appearance and color scheme goes, there's a lot of great color palettes. They all work. Okay. Um, for me, amber is what I've always liked. It's what my eyes are used to looking at. I'm one of the few guys that looks at amber actually. A lot of guys use the aqua blue or even the old school like white and yellow looks like the old Panoptics.
Right.
But for me, amber, I just feel like I can really see the head and the tail of that fish. Helps me tell what kind of fish they are. Um, and just it's what works for my eyes. It's what I'm used to. So a lot of this is personal. When it comes to color scheme, that's very personal preference, for me. I don't think there's a bad choice, but amber is what I use. And then additionally, I just mentioned like telling what kind of fish I'm looking at. I know we've all been out there and throwing at carp and gar and kind of trial and error, but this right here, perspective mode in conjunction with forward. I can look at a fish, see him 50 feet out, and I see he's 4 feet long. He might just look like a blob on here, but on perspective, I see he's 4 foot long, and I'm like, "Ah, that's a gar, you know. So I know not even to throw at that fish. So perspective mode, I mean, I can't, if I could just choose one, I would definitely just choose forward because of its ability to throw at a fish and watch your bait and all that. But having this in conjunction with forward, it takes a 2D picture and turns it into 3D. You just got another dimension. It makes you so much more efficient.
That's interesting. You always think about using the perspective mode in shallow water instances only, but you're
Hmm.
basically saying, hey, you if you use it, in conjunction more often, then you can really tell. Because I can't tell you how many gar I have caught live scoping. I
Yep.
mean, like spending hours chasing this fish, and finally I get him, and only to find out that I almost basically snagged him in the mouth,
Hmm.
and then I
Hmm.
get him up and it's like, oh, I just thought this was the biggest bass of my
They
life.
gar love a
So
jerk bait. We all know that
yeah,
with live scope.
yeah.
And catfish love
So
a minnow.
So along the settings makes perfect sense. I'm very guilty about changing my range from 100 to
Hmm.
60 to 40 because obviously the blob's easier for me to see at 40 than it is at
Right.
100. But
Hmm.
that makes sense. But along those lines, here's a common question and a struggle I have. I've identified a fish at 80 feet.
Hmm.
You guys are so good at putting your bait at whatever angle that is with boat position and
Hmm.
transducer position, which are related. And it's like one cast and there's your bait by the fish. And I know you miss
Yeah.
sometimes, but it
Yeah.
appears that you're always like 90%
Hey, on,
accurate.
on video, I hit 100% of the time. But if you
Right.
ride with me in the boat, I miss quite a bit. But a few things that I always do um, is one, go somewhere where you can practice. Like there's a
practice,
lot of
practice,
lakes that
practice. Yeah.
that are small little hidden gems. You mentioned one of them yesterday or earlier today, Trading House. I went out there yesterday and went and scoped around. It's phenomenal. Not a ton of big fish, but you can get a lot of bites. And practice makes perfect. But one thing you'll know, like if you ever watch me on live, I'll see a fish and I'm not immediately casting to it. I'm going to watch that fish. I'm going to figure out, is he swimming to me? Is he swimming away from me? Is he swimming left? Is he swimming right? All that can be told by this. But then again, I'm going to plug perspective. I can see those bass and I can be like, oh, he's swimming slow to the right. So if I see him here, I better throw 5 feet to the right of where I see him now and then let him get to my bait. And those are things that just make you more efficient. For really last year was the first year I ever ran perspective. I've been scoping for years. So you don't need perspective to scope. I mean, you can be really good at it just with that unit. I mean, Drew Gill doesn't run perspective mode, you know, and I mean, he's not probably, he's the best live scoper on the face of the planet. But all these tools, when you use them properly together, makes you more efficient. And all I can tell people is practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
Set set that range
Jeff
on
and I are
100
going
feet.
out and getting another Garmin unit right now, right after this podcast.
That,
I've got another site pulled up here. I'm on the Garmin site
You're
trying to figure
ordering
it.
it right now.
But in all
that,
seriousness, while we're on this distance, so
yeah.
one thing to me that I still struggle with is I see a fish at 30 feet. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter whether I'm crappie fishing, bass fishing, chasing
Hmm.
stripers, whatever. But 30 feet's a lot closer than what I think it is. And
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
what is your mental picture? I mean, I look at 30 feet and I'm like, "Phew," and I'm out there at 55. Well, at
Yeah.
55,
Yeah.
by the time he's swimming, I'm not as good as you by any means, not even in the same planet. But, he's moving right, and I threw 20 feet past him. I
Hmm.
never get back lined up. Get any tips there?
Yeah. Well, for one, throwing past the fish is always better than throwing short, right?
Okay.
Um, because you can see your bait past them, and if you have the time to reel that bait up, you can get it in line with them. Um, but you just kind of set markers for yourself mentally of like, hey, here's 30 feet. Some of the best ways to really get your stuff dialed in, to make sure your transducer's pointing straight, to make sure it's reading clearly, is go to a no wake buoy, okay? And you're going to see that no wake buoy at, so if you've got it set at 100, you're going to see it at 100 and say, okay, that's 100 feet. Okay, you get in closer at 50, that's 50 feet. You can make those little practice casts. And I'm not sitting there saying sit at a no wake buoy for 2 hours and throw at it.
Boy, I'm going to sit
But
at a no
but
wake
those
buoy and throw 2 hours at it to get that
well,
down.
but
No, I
those
love
those
it.
are
Brilliant. I love that
those are
idea.
great. Those are great visual surface markers that give you range ideas of what you're seeing under the water. Um, and all that can be done with docks. You're going to see those docks, and at certain ranges, and just time using the equipment. You always hear pro. How do I get better? Well, time on the water. It's. I hate that answer, but it's true. And time with these things. Um, will really just make you better and more efficient at making those accurate casts. And you look at what separates a really good scoper from someone who's not as proficient with it is how well they can make that accurate cast. A fish has a strike zone. If you're landing short of them and they're not super aggressive and they start that following process, you can kind of ruin a fish, you know. So making sure you're throwing either on top of them or just past them. Um, and another thing, we'll get into kind of a little bit more of tactics, but like always keep your bait, unless you're throwing a drop shot or something. But if we're talking scope and nomadic fish, keep your bait above the fish at all times if possible. If you're throwing a jerk bait, try to keep it over their head. If you're throwing a minnow, try to keep it over their head. Never let that minnow fall, because very rarely does a shad get under a bass and a shad continues to go towards that bass. He's going to
Right,
turn on
right.
him and start to rise. You know, crappie fishing, it's really popular. Like you do that slow rise, you know, on a crappie. Same thing with bass. You know, try to keep that bait moving away from those fish.
So we
You,
pulled some photos off the internet. Of course, this is
Hmm.
you hooking up your working on your.
Yeah. Yep. So now we're only allowed to use live scope for one period per day. Adds a lot more strategy into it,
Yeah.
and really has forced us to utilize a lot of other technology that's built into these units that we've had for years, whether it's side view, down view, 2D. Looks like we got a little clip here.
Yeah, this was pulled off of your. Well, before I play this clip, Jeff, did you have any?
Mhm.
I know you have more questions. Did you have
well,
any
let
more?
me wrap up one here
Yeah.
while I'm
Okay.
thinking about it, because we've covered, which as simple as he makes it sound, settings, some cast distances. I love the stationary object idea.
Hmm.
Brilliant. I used to tell people that on side imaging. Hey,
Hmm.
go scope or go side scan the boat ramp.
Yep.
You're not guessing, it's not moving on you.
Hmm.
But very common question I have and others have. You start out at Holbrook yesterday and you have
Hmm.
your settings. How many times did you tweak your settings? I hear that like, man, my scope was, man, my last scope was really good in the morning, but by
Hmm.
whatever, 2 or 3 o'clock, man,
Yep.
I didn't have it. And I started playing with color gain, color limit,
Hmm.
gain.
Yep.
What, how much, could you help us out on that?
Yeah, first things first, like when I drop my boat in the water, I'm gonna be messing with those settings. One thing to note,
Is
you
that
guys
is that due
blast
to what?
off.
Is that due to the water clarity of the particular body of water that you're
Yes.
fishing specifically?
Yes, yeah, and the sediment and stuff that I'm talking about. Another thing, wind is going to stir up sediment. It's going to create bubbles in the water. If you've got big waves crashing and you're trying to fish the dam on Rayburn and there's 3 footers rolling in, um, you're going to get a lot more clutter on your screen than as if it was calm. Um, but I'm definitely gonna. As soon as I put my boat in the water before we blast off, I'm gonna look at my settings, look at how I'm reading. One thing to note though, in really low light conditions, like when, say, I know we all fishing bass champs used to be, we'd put in the water 2 hours early because there's a long line. It's still dark out. Low light conditions, your graph is not going to read as crisp as it will if it's sunny. Not 100% sure on the science of why that is. Um, so with that in mind, don't think when you set your settings in the dark in the ramp in the morning that it's not going to look different in a couple hours when the sun comes up. You'll be able to, you might have to turn your gain down a little bit to clean your image up early, and then as the sun comes up, the day warms up, you turn that gain back up to get that, you can play and without cluttering your screen up. So those are two things that I note. And if the wind starts blowing during the day, or I go into a pocket that's got a lot of pollen in it, not every not every spot of a single lake looks the same. You're going to combat different things. You run up the river, it's going to be dirtier. Anytime I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm playing with my settings. So ideally, I would love to just set it and forget it. But multiple times a day, I'm going to go in and tap my gain up, tap my gain down, just a few degrees, just to see if I improve my picture at all.
Would you say gain? I know there's lots of settings and you're
Hmm.
elite at this, but if you had to say the one setting you toggled the most during a day of fishing, is that gain?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's gain is the most basic, simple way to adjust what you're seeing
Okay.
very quickly. If you want to turn it up, you can make it hotter. Now, if you get it as hot as you want and you've got more clutter, then you're going to have to go into that color limit, color gain that I was showing you guys earlier. But gain is the one that I mean, I'm hitting 20, 30 times a day just to see if I can get a little better picture, and I'm not changing it 20%. I'm changing it 2 to 3%, just up and down, just see what it looks different. And it's a simple button. I mean, it's whenever this goes away, it's right here. It's just, yeah, right here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's it. So, that little move right there can improve your picture, just to see if you like, and it also doesn't take much time to hit the menu button and go into color gain, color limit.
Yeah, that's big time stuff right there, John.
Those are the three things that you're messing with the most, right? Color gain,
Yeah,
color
yeah,
limit, and then the gain setting.
Right.
correct. The other ones I rarely touch.
And think about that. He just said 20 to 30 times on gain alone during the day. Just small tweaks.
Well,
Hmm.
it's got to be a, with the water conditions, sun penetration into the water.
Hmm.
I mean, those are a lot of things, obviously, to take in consideration throughout the day while
Hmm.
you're working on that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
not considering that.
Yeah.
50-foot one.
Hmm. Hmm.
One thing I did want to mention, and I stole this off of one of your YouTube videos, AJ.
Hmm.
When you were
Okay.
on Conroe and when you were practicing,
Hmm.
we're all talking about targeting specific fish with live
Hmm.
scope, but really you were also using that live scope to find the edges of grass when you were throwing a rattle trap. And I stole
Yep.
this little photo right here. You can
Hmm.
see the
Hmm.
paper line of that grass. Although that
Yep.
does look like one fish inside of there, maybe. But you use that for just more than finding fish. You're also using it to really target specific structure, are you not?
Yeah, specific structure. Over the years, I mean, shallow scoping is kind of how I've set myself apart from the competition. And a lot of times I'm not seeing that exact fish buried up in that grass, but using live scope to stay on the outside grass line or the inside grass line, whatever you're trying to target, rather than throwing way up onto the grass and dragging it out. Say the fish are sitting on the outside edge and um, rather than your bait being in that key zone for 5 feet, I can stay right on that edge, line it up, throw straight down that edge with one cast, and fish it just like a straight bank, and I can cover a lot more water that way, which is in return means a lot more fish. So, structure scoping is kind of how I learned to live scope. I've had live scope for, oh man, it's been since like 2017 now, 2016. And I've been the one that's like, man, how did I not know all these fish? I've had live scope. How did I not know all these fish were out just chasing bait? I always just assumed they were trash fish or white bass. So um, I was a little late to the party on that, but structure scoping is just being efficient. You could be going down a flat bank flipping docks, and I always kind of keep one eye on live scope, and there's that stump in between those two docks that I didn't know was there, and I'm gonna pitch over there. And I've caught a lot of really key fish doing that. So there is no such thing as too shallow for live scope for me.
Let's talk about this picture right here, John
Hmm.
Yeah. So
and AJ. What am I
Yep.
looking at here? I'm in perspective. I think I got that part
Yep.
right.
Yep. You're in perspective mode. You're pretty shallow in about 3 foot of water. And that looks to me like a fish on a bed.
Okay.
Right there. So these fish, they fan off nests. They create a crater. Depending on the type of bottom, they're not going to create a crater in a rock. But if that fish is on a silty bottom or on sand, he's going to create a hole, and that hole is going to cast a shadow, and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb on perspective mode. I'm going to show you guys one. I'm going to walk over here and show you guys one thing on perspective. Um, I do have a little bit different mount on my perspective. This is the fish obsessed mount. And what that allows me to do is do what I call 0 degree. Okay. So when I'm looking super shallow, I want my perspective mode to be almost flat. When I'm in anything deeper than 4 foot, I'm going to knock it down one notch, for that 4 to 10 feet. And then when I'm deeper than 10 feet, I'm going to knock it down even again. Okay. And that's going to give you a different angle to allow you to see deeper. And it's going to give you a cleaner picture. And, having a mount that is adjustable is really, really important when we're talking perspective. So that's a little deal here. And this mount also is super easy. If you're looking for amount that is going to allow you to, swap it from forward to there. It's just really easy adjustable. I can switch it to forward. I can go to perspective without ever taking any screws out or getting an Allen wrench out. I can do it all right there. And then same thing when I'm in forward. If I want to look super shallow, I can kick it up to a degree or two and help me look even shallower than you normally would be able to. So um, those little small adjustments will help you get a picture like what you're seeing right there.
Yeah, one of the
Excellent.
things that I've really enjoyed with perspective, I love fishing Lake Fork. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite lakes to fish, and
Hmm.
you know, and I love to sight fish. You know, from the old
Yeah.
days of Amstead when you could sight fish in almost 10 or 15 feet of water when it
Uh-huh.
was so clear. You can do that in perspective with fish you can't
Hmm.
see. But the other thing
Yeah.
that I found, and let me know if I'm looking at this correctly, AJ, is brim beds because that's a huge
Yes.
forage for bass.
Yep.
You know, right after the
Yep.
spawn is over, and
Correct.
that's what I'm seeing here. Correct?
Yeah, those look like brim beds, or tilapia beds, one of the two. But that to me, that would probably be big brim. And when bass first get off the bed, we're talking late April into May here in Texas, even into early June if you're up in North Texas. Brim beds are, I mean, they are the forage of choice for big bass. They love to lurk around, and those brim aren't going anywhere. They're protecting their nest, and it's an easy snack for those fish. And it helps. Perspective is incredible for seeing that. Side view is great as well. Um, you can do a lot of the same stuff with side view, but uh, you can really pinpoint them easy when you get perspective. And I love fishing brim beds in the early summer, late spring.
Hey, real quick question on perspective. I've spent almost no time on it, me
Hmm.
personally, but
Hmm.
a couple images back, there was a what we identified or you identified as a spawning bass spawning bed right here.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you were to pitch your white lure, white soft
Hmm.
plastic in there, whatever we, can you do you ever pick up your lure in this view, or is that only in forward facing?
At times, you have to be throwing a fairly large lure. If you're going to throw a jig or something like that, you will see it. You're not going to see it when it's just laying dead still on the bottom, but you'll see movement. Okay, but having that in conjunction with forward, I can make those really accurate casts.
Right, right.
A
That's what I
lot of
was trying to
times
figure out. Right,
I'll find the fish on perspective, and then I'll dial it in and make that cast on forward.
makes sense. Makes sense. All
And
right,
and that bed on forward is going to look like it will show something, but it's going to look like nothing. Even the fish will probably, I mean, barely show up. Not something
just
you'd ever think to throw at, but the perspectives is what's going to key you in to tell you that fish is there.
right. Give you the clue.
Yeah, and
No, that's
Hmm.
great.
sometimes you can
Great
actually,
info.
I've noticed sometimes when I'm doing that, I can see the splash.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, heard something there. Let's see what else do I got
Well,
here.
I'm in a
That's
metal building here, so that beeping you keep hearing is my graphs telling me it doesn't like being under a metal roof.
that is not picking up the.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we I told Alton we'd only keep him for 30, 45 minutes. We've been here an hour, and I'll talk for the next hour. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
I mean
I'm good with it.
it's a topic that's just so relevant right now,
Mm.
and just to be blatantly honest, it's just so interesting.
Yeah. 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 And it's definitely a hot topic no matter what side of the fence you're on it. But I mean I love it. It's made me a better angler. It's taught me so much. Um, we used to think all the fish spawned on the bank. We've learned that they don't all spawn on the bank. Some of them spawn in 7, 8 feet of water, and we've learned what they do. We learned why in the wintertime we used to think fishing was so tough in the winter because they're all out in the middle gorging on shad. Um, and so, I'm super thankful to be partnered with Garmin and have these guys helping me along in my career and teaching me just so much about this sport and these fish that we love.
That's awesome, man, and I really appreciate it. I've got a whole other list, but I need to digest this first. And no, 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 that's
No,
really
I
good.
think
Those
what
are
we need to
really
do is
target
just.
places.
I think what we need to do is just. We've got AJ recorded saying that he'll talk for as long as we want him to. So I think what we need to do is reserve the right to have him back after we air this. And not only do we come up with more questions, but we're going to be asked a whole lot more questions
Mhm.
by everybody that listens and watches this and out of the tournament. So I just think I'm gonna pull the card out and say you're going to have to come back later, and we're going to have even more detailed questions for you.
Hey,
Absolutely.
I would love that, guys. It's been awesome, reconnecting with y'all. It's been a while, but you guys were a big part of the start of my career, and so it's been awesome to get to hang out with you guys and talk on and off the record before and after this call. So I love catching up with y'all.
That's awesome. And John, don't forget our giveaway today. We've got a deal.
Oh my gosh, yes. If you've gotten this far in the podcast, you are in for a major treat. And I'm glad we didn't mention it beforehand because I really want to give it away to somebody that watched the whole thing. Not only do we have a massive Garmin swag bag, what's coming in that swag bag, Jeff?
Yeah, hats, koozies, shirts, just a good swag bag. But the key part that's coming in that is a 20 off coupon,
20
20%
off
off on any
coupon.
2 items from Garmin. So, I mean, maybe an 8616 and a LV34 right there, 20% off.
20% off of that that's a big savings because I'm going out and getting an 8616 later this afternoon, and so
You can't win the coupon though, John. So.
whoa, wait a minute. Where's the fairness there? AJ, thank you so much. And if you've gotten this far in the podcast, in order to be eligible to get that swag bag and that 20% off, you must do 3 things for us. One, you have to comment, say something nice to AJ, and thank him for coming on there. That's how we're going to find the winner, is by randomly choosing on the comments. You've also got to like the video and share the video with friends. You can share it anywhere you want to. You can share it to a friend. You can share it to any of the other social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or any of those. But you need to do all of that within the YouTube platform so that we can find you and we can see that you did that. And we will choose the winner off of the comments in the YouTube platform. So make sure you comment, and really the comment, all it has to be is thanks so much, AJ, for joining us today, because that's what we're doing right now. We're thanking you for spending your time. And, we know you're about to head back out on the road and you've got great things going on this year, not to mention, you're raising a family now. And,
Yep.
it's just, making, I was just thinking a little while ago, Jeff, back when AJ was fishing Bass Champs, we had little kids. Your kids are now graduated and off making their living. My kids are driving cars, and now here's AJ, who we were fishing against, and he was taking money from me. Now he's got a kid, and he's doing the whole same thing. It's just,
Yeah, man.
it's
Yeah.
amazing to see the generations, that are in our sport and enjoying our sport.
It's awesome. Really appreciate him and AJ and David fishing with us. Miss you guys, but glad to see your success. It's been awesome to watch.
I think it's awesome next year that y'all are going to open it up to pros fishing bass champs.
We're gonna get some comments now.
Oh yeah, that was
I
a
always
nice.
say, hey, as long as you come and don't do well, they're gonna love you being there. You
Right,
do
right.
well, which you would, and you're probably gonna have a lot of conversations at the boat ramp. But man,
Well,
really, thank you. You answered a lot of questions. I think you're gonna get a lot of guys like me who got the equipment but kind of understand it and get a little frustrated when we watch you use it and watch your images. And I've got a lot of thinking to do here today.
Yeah, me,
well,
you and me both. Yeah.
well, I hope it sparked some good conversation. And man, thank you guys so much for having me on. I wish you guys the best this season as well, and all the anglers listening to this. I hope what I told you helped, and Bass Champs holds a special place in my heart.
Man,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, that wraps it up for this Bass Champs Doc Talk with AJ. Lots of great information. Remember, comment, like, share in the YouTube post. You could win a Garmin swag bag and 20% off. See you on the water.